Jamar Chase has practiced for the second straight day as the Cincinnati Bengals prepare for the New England Patriots, and we will get you prepared for week one in this episode of Locked On Bengals.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, covering your team every day. We're on YouTube. Shout out to all of you who make us your first watch or first listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And all the everydayers, welcome back to another episode of Jamar Chase Watch. This episode of Locked On Bengals is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can get a $50 instant winnings when you play $5 right now at prizepicks.com with promo code Locked On NFL. And James, for the second straight day on Thursday, Jamar Chase practiced, limited, not injury related, with a rest designation.
Yeah, I think this is what we're going to see until there's a dotted line or a signed line that has, I don't know, 140 million-ish on it. I think that Jamar Chase, from all accounts, looked like Jamar Chase. Obviously, we heard Joe Burrow on Wednesday say he's ready to go or will be ready to go if he does, in fact, play Sunday. T. Higgins saying similar things and making similar comments. And not just those guys, just talking to people in the locker room about Jamar. I think that it's very clear that these guys are confident he can go out there and beat Jamar Chase. Now, will he play 10% less than he would normally or 15% less? Probably. And I think you can do that with the versatility and the number of weapons and assets that you have on this offense, at least on paper, where you can limit him a little bit this week if he does play. But I will say this, Jake, and I just want to make it clear, because during all this Jamar Chase watch, you better believe that the locker room is looking at how this is being handled. And I don't mean that it's negative now, because it's not. But if nothing gets done with the second best player and everyone knows he's the second best player, that will raise some eyebrows. Because everyone knows he's the second best player on the team and how valuable he is. And so I don't think from a culture standpoint it impacts it, but it will certainly get these guys to be like, all right, well, if he can't get his deal, how in the world am I going to get my deal when I'm up? And I do think that there is something to that. And that's probably why both sides are, I don't even want to say pushing for a deal, but have negotiated up to this point. And there's some optimism around a Chase contract.
Yeah, reports continue to indicate that things are trending in the right direction. Ian Rapoport on Wednesday night, after we recorded our crossover that you probably have just listened to for the everydayers out there, it was close enough for Jamar to practice, but not something that Rapoport was comfortable saying was close to done. That was my takeaway from Rapoport's report on Wednesday. Haven't seen any reporting as of the time of recording Thursday as to whether or not that contract status has changed. Rumors are certainly flying aplenty, and so we'll see if there is something between now and game day. I still have the feeling, James, that something does get done for some of the reasons we've talked about, the importance to the team, to Jamar Chase, to the culture that you've just referenced. And the one thing that I think I didn't really consider until this week in terms of the complexity of the deal is the cash flow aspect of it from the Bengals perspective. If Jamar Chase is willing to hold out now with 2 years left under his rookie contract, they need to then structure the deal so that it has the cash flow up front that Jamar Chase is looking for, and also has what they need on the back end of that deal to avoid a future holdout, or try to avoid a future holdout, because maybe the last 2 years are really cash light or something like that. And so I'm sure they've been dancing around the cash flows, the guarantees, all these pieces of structure, whether they're going to use or when they're going to use option bonuses the way they did with Joe Burrow to spread the cap hit out. And then there's just, as we've talked about quite a bit, the guaranteed number. But in terms of the impact on the locker room, you got to at some point pay your premium players, right? And we've talked about this before too. This is not a new talking point, but if they see this go into the regular season and Jamar Chase is unhappy as the second best player on the team after T. Higgins decided to play on the franchise tag because there was nothing else on the table for him, after you let Jesse Bates go, then at some point that question gets too loud to ignore.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like that's it. It's one thing if all right, T can't get his deal because you're thinking of Jamar, you had just paid Joe, but you need that. And I think they know that. And that's why it comes back to it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. A week ago or a year ago at this time, as we were recording this, the franchise. Think about the guy who changed the franchise, impacted the entire city, impacted the direction of Bengals football forever, impacted the direction of Locked On Bengals. Like Joe Burrow hadn't gotten an extension because there's so many things that go into it. They planned on doing it. They were trying to get it done, and there were little details that needed to be ironed out. And then the Bengals make an offer, or vice versa. Joe, however it was, it gets offered and agreed to, and hopefully that's the case with Jamar here. Is all of these little details, they're ironing them out. Because I will say this, it feels like Jamar wants a 4-year deal. That is a very team-friendly approach. A lot of people are mad at him, at least some people are mad at him because it's, oh, you have 2 years left on your deal. If he's willing to take a 4-year deal now, that is very beneficial for the Bengals. That is a team-friendly thing to do. Much like Joe taking a 5-year deal last year was a team-friendly thing to do. He did not have to do that. He could have went the 4-year route with the quarterback money and cashed in again earlier, sooner. And Jamar here, regardless of what you think about the money or the fact that he didn't practice, it's not a debate. If he's open to a 4-year deal or pushing for a 4-year deal or wants a 4-year deal, that does help the Bengals out for sure. And if they get it done, you're talking about Jamar Chase for the next 6 seasons. That's probably the rest of his ultra prime years. Maybe not. Maybe he's awesome until he's 35. But the next 6 years are probably going to be the best years, even better than his rookie year, the best years of Jamar's career.
And it gets you through the decade, 6 years. It's essentially the decade of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. That will be the 2020s when we look back on Cincinnati Bengals history. I think it's going to get done.
Wow.
I mean, more likely than not, right? I still think it's going to get done.
Yeah.
I think that the price you pay if you don't get it done is just too large. I think that there's a lot of motivation on both sides to get it done.
I think so too. And it's because, one, there's no real deadline. I know the Bengals don't do in-season stuff, so that's like the deadline. There's no deadline. So this could get, it's not like the T. Higgins thing where it's July 15th and that's it. Like there's no deadline here. And so you want to get it done. You hope to get it done. You want him on the field Sunday. Can you imagine when Jamar gets announced on Sunday starting, if he's just agreed and signed a whatever deal is the deal? Obviously, if there is a deal, when there is a deal, and I do think it's a matter of when. It could be next year, by the way, that when, but hopefully it is in the next few days. We are going to have you covered with that breaking news here on Locked On Bengals. But there is a game Sunday, Jake. There is a game Sunday. So let's talk football. That's right, football. We will do that. Bengals Patriots coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools you need to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and LinkedIn Jobs is perfect for you. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role, and that's why you got to get to LinkedIn, because in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. If you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And right now you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's get the injury updates out of the way here first. That includes Jamar Chase practicing, by the way. That's where we were talking for that entire segment. We're talking a lot about the contract, but he's also prepared to play. And I think we've talked about that enough too. Joe Burrow asked yesterday, does Jamar Chase need any time to get ready to go? When do you think he'll be ready? Joe said he's ready now. That continues to be the impression. He continues to go through walkthroughs, meetings, practices. He's still limited on the practice report, not injury-related rest. Also not injury-related rest and limited on Thursday was Akeem Davis-Gaither, which is an interesting one. Jermaine Burton popping up as a full participant with a toe issue of some sort. And the ones that we're keeping an eye on, really the one I should say that we're keeping an eye on is Chris Jenkins, who continues to be limited with a thumb injury, had the thumb wrapped for practice today. We'll see if he's playing in a club, but we've already talked about the depth of this defensive line quite a bit and the lack thereof on the interior, the way that it's been challenged with injuries in terms of the edge players. And if Chris Jenkins is playing in a club, even if he's still good, the impact is a little bit diminished of your ability to hand fight when you don't have your fingers. And that is certainly something to keep an eye on for Chris Jenkins, who showed up as limited on Wednesday, continued to be limited on Thursday. T. Higgins also listed as limited with the hamstring, by the way, but said that according to an answer to your question, James, at his locker after practice, he feels as good as he's felt going into a season.
Yeah, and he's looked he looked awesome when you were here. Still looks awesome, playing exactly how you would expect a stud star receiver to play. I'm expecting a huge year out of T. I really am. I mean, you want to put numbers on it. I mean, well over 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 yards. I think that could happen realistically. And obviously health is a huge factor. And that's why you see the limited hamstring. Maybe he missed 2 plays of team because of it, right? Maybe it's that simple. Maybe they're like, all right, these 2 plays, we don't need you in T. And so then they have to list him as limited. But he was all smiles after practice today. So obviously I expect him to play. But I'm expecting big things from him. And he's going to be tested in this game, by the way. I mean, that's the one thing. I think Christian Gonzalez is a heck of a corner. How they deploy that defense and Gonzalez, that's going to be interesting, because do you go up against Jamar? Do you go up against T? Do you just play sides? I'm not sure. But the Patriots, they are pretty good in the back end.
Yeah, and speaking of Patriots corners, upgrade for Jonathan Jones, who will be starting outside along with Gonzalez in that secondary at corner, from limited to full participation on Thursday. He's dealing with a hamstring injury as well. New on the injury report for the New England Patriots on Thursday was Antonio Gibson with a hip injury that limited his participation on Thursday. Vidarian Lowe, who could be in line to start at left tackle. If not, it will be a Corafor. We talked about this with Mike on the crossover on Thursday. He was limited again with an abdomen injury, and Josh Uche was limited with a foot injury. Sidney So continues to not practice for the Patriots, and he would be in line to be a starting guard. So Patriots offensive line continues to be banged up. Sounds like they're getting a little bit healthier in the secondary with the Jonathan Jones upgrade. And the way that this probably goes is the Bengals have to overcome a good secondary. And that's what we talked about with Mike in the crossover yesterday. And we'll get to the offense here in a few seconds, I think. But the health for the Patriots is going toward healthy secondary, banged up in the trenches. And I don't think that's a trend. That's a good thing for them with 2 potential offensive linemen missing on an already questionable unit in week 1. But getting back to Chris Jenkins being limited, James, we talked with Mike about this yesterday. And the way that the Bengals don't take care of business in this game, where they are still the most favored team in the NFL in week 1 at home against the Patriots, who are not expected to be good, is if they can't control the run and then things really get away from them. And Chris Jenkins, we've talked about, needs to be a big part of their run D this year. I hope that his efficacy is not too diminished by whatever's going on with the thumb.
Yeah, they really need him. And I saw him in the locker room. It seems like he's going to play. And the question is, how effective can you be? Because the Patriots, I think they know they're going to run the ball like crazy. The Bengals, I know for a fact, know that the Patriots are planning to run the ball and try to keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands as much as possible. How do you limit a Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow-led offense? By not giving them the ball and by playing keep away. And so the key, honestly, the biggest key on defense, outside of forcing turnovers every week, which you can say, but making Jacoby Brissett have to drop back, making Jacoby Brissett have the ball in his hands, not getting 4.5, 5 yards a carry, and then some explosive runs mixed in, and then it opens up the play action pass downfield. Like, you don't want to do that. And so there are some wild cards in general that you're going to have to keep track of. And by wild cards, I mean rookies that you just don't have a lot of film on. Javon Baker, your guy from the draft, Jalen Polk as well. So it's kind of hard to prepare for those guys, but regardless, just because there's not a lot of film on them, but regardless, Ramondre Stevenson, that's the guy that you got to slow down. You got to stop. And if you do that, you're in good position to make Brissett drop back, and then your pass rush can tee off, and then you're probably forcing turnovers, and then boom, you're accomplishing a bunch of goals.
Yeah, we talk a lot about game script when we talk about the way the Bengals want a football game to go. When I talk about game script, I'm talking about being ahead in the game early and being able to dictate a little bit more because of the game situation, what the offense can do against you, what your offense can do against the defense. When you're ahead in the game early, when you're controlling things early, when you're controlling field position, when you're controlling, you're getting in, staying ahead of the chains on offense, you're keeping the opposing team behind the chains on defense. Obviously, that's always better for the team that is winning in those categories. But when you're playing against an offense that is as limited when it's behind as the Patriots offense looks like it will be this year, it becomes even more important. And I mean, I have a lot of confidence in the Bengals in this game either way. And I don't have expectations that this should go too squirrely on them, barring a ton of week one weirdness, which I talk about a lot as well, James. But if they can get ahead and just control the game early, this could be a relaxing Sunday. Not saying that it will be, but if those things go right for them early, the Patriots to me do not look like a team equipped to mount a comeback. And if that happens, we'll also get a treat and get to see how effective the Bengals run game is at closing out games, which is something that I'm very curious to see this year when they have those opportunities to see if they can get back to that efficiency late in games when they need it to close out games. But it all starts early. And a big theme for this team has been fast starts to the season. I think fast starts to games as well, something that we haven't focused as much on, but we talked a lot about last year. And coming out fast this year, there's all this talk about how great camp has been. It's a soft opponent for week one. You're at home. You've got the orange out theme going. There's a lot that could be real nice about this weekend if things start out well. And I think that's got to be something they're looking to do.
No, sure. It's a team that you're playing that is playing a veteran, even though the rookie was better because of the offensive line situation. They lose Christian Barmore in a really unfortunate health situation. Hopefully he's back next year. They trade Matt Judon. So two key pieces of their defensive front just gone. Like, they're more likely to have the number one pick than the 30th pick next year. So make them feel that right away from the jump. And you do that, and by the end of the first half, they're going to be like, man, this sucks. Like all of the doubt, all of the things, like that's going to creep in. Like, we're a young team, all of that. And so that's it when you have a team like that. At the same time, I don't think it's going to be this pushover. I don't think it's going to be super easy from the jump because it is week one. And the reason you've trademarked week one weirdness is because it is weird. Weird things happen. In this Bengals team, there's going to be a time probably on Sunday where that is tested. It might be the 14-minute mark of the first quarter when it's 3rd and 2 and the Bengals are in danger of going 3 and out, and instead they go downfield, score a touchdown, and then they run away with it. Or it could be in the third quarter when they're up by 10 and the Patriots are driving. I'm not sure exactly when, but there'll probably be a time when that is challenged, and we'll get to see the Bengals respond. So I'm excited from that part. You don't know if it's going to be offense or defense. I'm sure there's plenty of other things that you want to cover. We need to discuss the offense a little bit more, I'm sure. Joe Burrow just not mentioned. This used to be Locked On Burrow. What the heck happened? I'm sure we'll talk about Joe Burrow coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. They're America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They have over 5 million active members, and the reason is because it's not like other daily fantasy sports app. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is awesome. And right now, one Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard from Caleb Williams gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks. It's gone when September ends, but September is just getting started, and you can get started by downloading the Prize Picks app today and using code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's right. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at Prize Picks and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed with promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Joe Burrow taking the field for his first regular season game since the injury last year, since he was unable to throw a ball on the sideline. Obviously, a lot of eyes there. There are a lot of guys we're going to be seeing for the first time since, or the first time in new roles, some newcomers to the team that we will have our eyes on. But that, of course, is headlined by the star quarterback who makes the Bengals go. And I'm excited to see Joe Burrow this week. The reports of his mental mastery have been frequent in the last week or two leading up to the season, from Albert Breer to the Bengals' own coaching staff. So very excited to see Joe Burrow in his premiere, excited to get that exhale when he takes that first hit, if he takes a first hit against a defensive line that, honestly, I have high expectations for the offensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals this week in keeping Joe Burrow relatively clean, given the level of competition. But a lot of things to watch for with Joe Burrow and in terms of firsts in this season premiere.
For sure. A lot of things. Does he push the ball downfield? How limited could this offense be if Chase is limited at all? Or do they just hit the ground running because they have all of these different weapons, and that you can play Yoshi outside and Charlie Jones in the slot if Chase is coming out for a few plays? Do they push the limits and push the ball downfield some because the offensive line can hold up and they're confident in that? I think, does Joe Burrow go under center early in the game to just add this wrinkle that the Patriots have seen, I'm sure, and heard about, but haven't really been able to prepare for a ton because Joe Burrow hasn't done it a ton? Maybe they do that on the first play. Could you imagine the first play from scrimmage, the Bengals go under center? Like, I'm not sure we've seen that in the Joe Burrow era. Maybe we have, but I can't remember.
I can 100% imagine it, by the way. I'm almost expecting it, to be honest.
Really? Sign me up. I just think
I'm not sure. I mean, you could obviously, but like, it would be the farthest thing from a surprise, I guess is all I mean.
Really? I would still be surprised because that's the bread and butter. For sure.
All right.
Because are surprised in a sense that it's still the underdog to shotgun, like starting the game in shotgun.
I guess, yeah, if you're giving it odds, I would say that shotgun probably still has better odds, but more than previous years, I would be less surprised for them to be under center than ever before in the Joe Burrow tenure in Cincinnati. Maybe after the first few games when he was a rookie.
They just go under center and run it 5 straight times for 53 yards. And you're like, what is going on?
But if it works, like, I think that would be great. That's what this team wants to do.
It would be great. If I would be shocked. That would be surprising if 5 straight runs to start the game. But I'm just excited to see the wrinkles that this offense could have. And they're going to have to iron out some of those wrinkles. It is not going to be perfect. Just to be clear, I get it. It's the Patriots, and they're eyeing whatever receiver they could take next year or sign in free agent. Like, there's so much discussion over that, or when will Drake May play? Fine. But this Bengals offense, they're going to have to iron out some things and they're not going to be perfect on Sunday. But they shouldn't have to be perfect. And hopefully they can be pretty darn good and encouraging. And that starts with Joe Burrow getting hit and popping back up. We haven't seen it yet. I know he's not anxious to do it. No one wants to get hit, but I do think that that's the last box he needs to check. And we'll probably see that on Sunday. So it's here, Jake. Football is here. Joe Burrow is going to be throwing where I'm at in less than 72 hours, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I think that is certainly where our eyes will be focused. Also excited to see Trent Brown out there to see how he settles in. And we just heard from Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots in the crossover yesterday that he thinks Bengals fans will be very pleased with the veteran starting at right tackle. Interested to see how they use these tight ends and the plethora of tight ends on this team. They kept 5. How they are deployed will continue to be something very interesting to watch. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Dax Hill getting out there for the started outside corner, Geno Stone, the return of Von Bell, the addition of Sheldon Rankins, how they rotate on the interior defensive line, where they're rotating at the edge. A whole bunch of things that are very interesting to me in terms of guys to watch, doing new things or new to the team, like I mentioned, in addition to how the offense looks different, how we detect the Dan Pitcher and Justin Riscati, who I continue to credit for what I think will be a noticeable difference on this team. And maybe I'm just way off base there, but they made a whole position for him called passing game coordinator. So you would expect there to be an impact there. There's a lot that will be very interesting in this first game as we begin to get a feel for what this season is going to look like for this team.
Yep. I'm excited. I think the Bengals win. If you want a prediction, 27-13 sounds about right, where they don't hit on all cylinders on offense. The defense gives up some plays, but it's not ever really in doubt, and they win 27-13.
You know, what's funny about that number is when I was thinking about this earlier this week, I was right around there too. I couldn't quite get higher than 27 points, although that could obviously happen, like turnovers, whatever, an incredible start for the offense. It's certainly possible, but I kept settling on 27-13 or 16. But then you're giving up 3 field goals, which is a weird number to get to. But you never know what can happen in these games, of course. But James, you think that they are covering pretty easily, but by not a whole lot of sweat with an 11-point win.
I mean, it's a two-score win. You know, maybe it's 24-14, anything in that range. But yeah,
sorry, 14-point win.
They should win. Yeah, they should win though by 2 scores, I would say.
Yeah, I describe this as taking care of business, and I think that's what this game is. It's getting out to a fast start. It is handling a team who does not have nearly the expectations or the roster that you have if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a home opener before you've got your toughest game of the opening quarter of the season in week 2. This is a game that the Bengals should handle, and barring a bunch of weirdness or unanticipated happenings on the football field, that is the way that I agree. I expect it to go. And I'm hoping for a relatively stress-free Sunday here, James, but by saying that, I'm sure somebody thinks I've just jinxed it. So we better end the show before I say more things that upset more people and jinx more things. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Like James said, we will have you covered if there is breaking news that we are interested in talking about between now and Sunday. Imagine what that could be. And until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.